What's the biggest scandal you've somehow been involved in? I was there when a girl started a scandal about some guy potentially shooting up the school during a talent show. Word got out, and the poor kid had his house searched and was suspended from school for at least a week. Everyone, including me, was questioned by the principal and police over the matter. The girl that started it all believed it was going to happen because a magic 8-ball told her it had come true. When the Elliot Spitzer H scandal broke, I lived in the same building as the H. I had read about it online at work that day, but didn't realize she lived in my building. Walking home that night, I was surprised to find a swarm of media people in front of my building. I was even more confused when they turned and started taking pictures of me. Then I got a bit closer and heard one of the cameramen say loudly, "It's not her, it's just nobody." I've never felt like such a disappointment for not being a prostitute. This is probably one of my favorite ones on here, mainly for the last sentence. In grade school I would get dropped off at school pretty early. I was always one of the first few kids there because my mom worked early, so she would drop me off on her way to work. One day in grade 3, my friends and I were playing in the field. Far back into the right corner of the field there are about 5 big trees. We would always go there because you can't really see in there unless you get close to it. Well, on this day, we walk up to the trees, we see something weird. We can't really tell what it is. We get closer, we just see someone's feet rocking back and forth. We finally go up to it and realize some guy hung himself. We crapped ourselves and ran to the teacher telling her there's a man on the tree. She didn't really understand us, so we told her to follow us. She saw it and stayed calm and told us to go inside and stay in the office. They closed down the field for part of the day because police officers and paramedics came. The school also got a social worker to come talk to my 4 friends and I that discovered the dead man. We had to talk to a social worker a few times after that too. It didn't really bother me that much. I mean, I was 8, I didn't really understand what was going on exactly. I just thought it was creepy that an older man was in the field. Every once in a while, now that I think about it, I get a bit creeped out. Hanging yourself outside a grade school seems rather selfish and or mean. Employee at an auto parts store. Notice a special order vehicle air filter is priced at $0.01 when usually priced about $50. Proceed to order 200 air filters, along with a couple other employees doing the same. An entire pallet of air filters shows up a couple days later, along with the district manager and loss prevention. Somehow didn't lose my job. To be young again. Apparently I was a hacker because some girls saw that I was messing around on CMD on the school computers and the whole school's network coincidentally went down the same day. 1337. Woke up, got ready for school, walk out to warm up my car, dead body in the road, call cops. After that, call mom because cops are blocking my driveway and I can't get to school. Hey mom, can I miss the first few hours of school? Why dead body outside and I can't get out because of the cops. Small town, about 2,000 people. It was big Jews at my school because a bunch of buses go by my street and they saw the sirens. Got to miss like 3 hours of school and play some more Terraria. Hahaha, big Jews. My neighbors called the police to tell them that my mom was cooking M or some other drug in our suburban house. I got home after school and she was crying hysterically. She tells me that the police busted into the house and tore through everything to find the drugs she was supposedly cooking. She was by herself. My dad was off in Iraq and I was at school. She was so upset because they went through my room and even my underwear drawer. The reason the neighbors called the tip in? My mom sprinkled crushed up mothballs around the yard to keep snakes out. We were the talk of the neighborhood for a while. And not a single bad was broken that day. Starting with the TLDR. My senior class caused a lockdown and a no water gun in town rule for a few hours. When I was a high school senior in 2002, my entire area had a senior game called either Assassins or Water Wars depending on the school you went to. The game was you and a friend secretly are assigned to assassinate another team by squirting them with water, usually a water gun, while another team is secretly assigned to get you. You get new assignments after every hit until the last team is left standing. Who wins the entry fee? Each team paid. Everyone paid $10. The jackpot was $500. There were rules. No playing at school grounds at all. School wasn't involved and we didn't want trouble. You can't go into someone's house, yard or workplace without their permission. And nothing that could hurt. Super soakers and water balloons were the most powerful allowed. It was supposed to be pure fun, not malicious in any way. And it was fun until one team decided to do a stakeout for their target. There's only one entrance from a one-lane road into the school. Traffic every morning is pretty bad, so there's a lot of standing still. One team decided to dress in camouflage, put on army face paint marks on their face, and hide behind bushes along the road with bright pink super soaker guns for their target. For your information, she would have loved it and said so later. Well, they decided to hide behind bushes in a yard owned by a woman who saw them and thought they were terrorists. Terrorists with pink super soakers. I should mention this was the spring after 9/11. I arrived at school 1.5 hours later. I got to sleep in due to senior privilege and no classes those periods, to find the school was totally locked down. When I knocked on the door, I was greeted by a cop who had his hand on his gun and demanded I go to the auditorium. The principal and the town police held an assembly for the senior class and demanded we give them the prize money and that any kid in town playing with water guns would be arrested on the spot. The senior class collectively told them to frick off. They weren't getting a dime, and the water gun rule was never adhered to or enforced. The class even had a massive water gun fight at the local park within a week. The team who caused the lockdown were expelled and weren't supposed to graduate, but were allowed back within 2 days when the school was threatened with lawsuits. The principal and faculty were basically forced by circumstance to go to our graduation, but they really wanted nothing to do with us ever since the incident. The day after 9/11, I was working as a videographer with a news reporter who broke the story that Mohammed Atta and Marwan al-Shihi had trained in Venice FL. It was a huge story. 6 months later, we went back to visit Rudy Deckers, who owned Huffman Aviation where the two extremists had trained. Up till this point, the US government had claimed that the terrorists had entered the country illegally and that they were illegally trained to fly. As we spoke with Deckers, he went to check his mail. Lo and behold, the INS issued visas for the two terrorists had arrived in the mail that morning, proving that the US had knowledge all along that they were here. It was a huge blunder. We broke the story and within hours the CIA showed up to confiscate the visas. The next morning the place was crawling again with media and guys in black suits and glasses. To put it into perspective, I got up the next morning and watched as President Bush addressed the nation about the story we had done the night before. Ultimately, the INS was disbanded over the issue and reformed as ICE. Won an Edward R. Murrow Award for continuing coverage for that story. I also have a photocopy of their visas around here somewhere. I am in a 12-step program and sponsor a lot of men. I once had a sponsee tell me that he had found child pee on the phone of another man that I also sponsored. I had to take him to the police station to report the issue. It turned into a complete mess with charges then being filed against the guy who found the pee for defamation of character, and I was dropped as a sponsor by both guys. Sorry it turned out like it did, but you have integrity. You're one of the good ones. He said she said sexual harassment investigation at work because I was friends with both people and in management. HR pulled me in and interviewed me about both them. The guy told HR I had been harassed by the girl before and she told HR I saw his behavior. The whole thing was weird. I was also involved in a sexual harassment scandal. To my surprise, I was the one being harassed. Someone reported it on my behalf. Okay. So my first job, me and a guy friend got on really well. Totally platonic, but everyone knew how close we were at work and would tease us, etc. We worked in an office and ignored all the gossip. We went to lunch every single day for 4+ years and would talk about everything. Mainly his wedding and after that his baby being born. He was strapped for cash after the baby came and complaining about needing a raise etc. But then he suddenly stopped complaining. I thought he just decided maybe I didn't want to hear about it or maybe his wife had gotten a raise or something. So I never really questioned him on it. Turns out he was in charge of ordering the prepaid postage bags at work and was helping himself to some and selling them on eBay. Got caught as he used the work's email as the eBay contact. Dumbass. He was marched out of the office and charged etc. Thing is, seeing as we were so close, people assumed I had something to do with it or at least knew about it. I had no freaking idea he'd done this and haven't spoken to the guy since. I ended up leaving that job shortly after because I couldn't handle the fact that I was under suspicion. Before this event, I'd been implicitly trusted by my boss to do anything. Suddenly I had IT going through my emails and finance checking all of the company purchases I'd made, and there were lots as that was sort of my job. Heartbreaking situation. Totally nothing to do with me. Still angry as heck at the guy. TLDR. Suspected of stealing at work as best friend was caught. I can see them quietly checking your work just in case, but it seems really ridiculous to be accusatory to your face. Don't get me wrong. Nobody cared at all, but I was held against my car with guns drawn by my small town's entire police force. All the neighborhood kids and their terrified mothers looked on from the windows. It was a street I played on every single day of my life for probably 10 years. Police got a report I was driving with a gun on my dashboard. I was a cap gun. They did what appeared to be some sort of ballistics testing on my toy gun in the middle of the road, with me on the hood of my car all the while. I think I got it a job lot. The best part was when my mom got there. Freaking livid. So much coffee, you are 17 goddamn years old, and you're driving around with a toy gun? Are you brain dead? What the heck is the matter with you? This is what you do after school? The entire police after you, she went on and on while the cop looked angry and I essentially stood there like an idiot. I drove home. My mom stayed back a few minutes, but we lived only like a block away. My dad asks what's up. I tell him he'll find out soon enough. Ma gets home. I figured I am fricked now. She walks in the door like nothing happened at all. Mom, I am so sorry. It was dumb. I have no idea what I was thinking. So much coffee. I grew up in a city with actual guns. It's a freaking toy. Buttholes have nothing better to do than shake down some kid. Not a bad show though. Huh. I was freaking shocked. That was it. The next day the police chief and the principal of my high school went through my locker for precautionary purposes. It was weird, but yet, big scandal for about 36 hours. Something similar happened to a friend of mine with a BB gun. They ripped him out of his car and threw him on the hood windshield of the car. I remember him telling me it was raining and the windshield wipers were still on, so they kept smacking him in the face every 10 seconds. My secondary school teacher lost his job after I kissed him at our leavers ball. Not my proudest moment. In my roadie days I was on a short tour with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was summer and the first gig was at the Reading Festival, and I'd come down with one of the bosses from a now defunct merch company, helping stock up the big merch shops. I pointed out a shirt on display, which said Mega LOLZ on it. It was like 2009. Forgive me. And the shop runner handed it to me as a freebie. I noticed on the back it said, in staggered lettering, Low, Saint, PR, OP, P, TS. Ho. Being sound of mind, I did not appreciate a foreshadowing of the charges against the singer. In Sharpie I added SUCK. So later I'm in the RHCP backstage compound thing eating these awful stuffed vine leaves and totally not being fazed by how one of my favorite bands were eating the very same buffet one table away. I get grabbed by the arm and led out. It's my boss. What the frick you doing, man? What? He spins me around and gestures to the back of my shirt. Lost Profits have the same freaking management company as the Chili Peppers. Oh, alright. If they see you in that, it's a breach of our contract. They could renegotiate a merch deal we signed in 1993. Frick? Yes, frick. I continued on the tour, but it caused such a furore at the merch company that they didn't give me any work for a few months. And that's the story of how I almost cost a merchandise company millions and millions of pounds. Now they've been dissolved as a business. I can tell the story. The lead singer of Lost Profits turned out to be a pedophile, so maybe you were onto something. When I was 12-13 and a little hooligan, I was hanging out at the corner store with a friend of mine, being two little crapheads. About 15 minutes before we stole some candy bars from an adjacent petrol station. As we were enjoying the stolen treats out of nowhere, and I mean nowhere, 3 cops' cars and 2 police on feet come storming at us with guns drawn, yelling at us to get on the ground. I freaking freaked and dropped to the ground screaming apologies about the candy bars whilst just about in tears. The police seemed confused about it. Turns out some kid in the lane behind the corner store stole a car, made it about 50 meters, crashed, then bailed in our direction, and either me or my friend fit the description of this kid. The police did not charge us for stealing the candy bars and even let us eat them to help calm our nerves. I've not stolen anything since. I am on an organ waiting list and due to previous health history was unable to get insurance, so was on state Medicaid. Budget cuts come along and 51 previously approved potential organ recipients were told we could no longer get them unless we could find alternate funding. It was an election year and both parties saw opportunity to point a finger at the other. The big hook was Republican death panel, so it got a lot of press coverage. Somehow I became the spokesman to the press, went on Keith Olbermann's show, Fox and Friends, front page of New York Times, and countless smaller media outlets. I got caught after receiving hand job in middle school. They sent a letter home to everyone in school, 6th, 7th, 8th, and then held a school assembly. I stopped getting beaten on by the 8th graders from a few months after that. I was going to shoot up the school. So, me and my friend A, let's call her, didn't really get along with people in our high school, and by that I mean we hated basically everyone and they hated us. Anyway, her boyfriend was at boot camp and she had a Facebook status with a countdown. So the ignorant people that there were at my school thought it was a countdown to when she was going to shoot up the school. Somehow it gets around I'm going to be her partner, and as a joke my friend photoshopped a picture of me over the Columbine kid's face. Got called into the office and almost got suspended. Small town. Everyone knew and people showed up in SWAT gear as a joke on the day it was supposed to happen. The best part is I'm in a wheelchair and all they would have to do is like, go up some stairs. Dumbasses. The best part is I'm in a wheelchair and all they would have to do is like, go up some stairs. Dumbasses. This made me laugh way too hard. The National Security Agency, NSA, sent a guide to Detroit to try to recruit Arabic language speakers. I don't know if you guys know this, but the Detroit metro area is home to the largest number of Arabic speakers in the world, outside of the Middle East. The NSA guy, his name was Mike Stone, yeah right, talked my boss, an Iraqi American with strong ties to the Arabic community, into helping him recruit these people. This Mike guy more or less convinced my super greedy boss that he could put together a language institute for the NSA and make a bunch of money doing contract work for the NSA. My boss ate it up. In the process, we hired several ex-military people, one of which was well versed in the security clearance process, SF-86 and such. This woman was then given an abbreviated version of the SF-86 to have everyone my boss was trying to attract to the program fill out so this Mike Stone guy could look them over and help us pick the right candidates. We collected thousands of these things from people and more or less turned them over directly to the NSA. After about a year, this Mike Stone guy evaporated and we never heard anything from them ever again. I'm pretty sure I helped the NSA gather domestic intelligence on the local Arab community in Detroit. I'd be willing to bet money you did. When I went to high school, I heard that our school was about to be cancelled. So I came to see our principal. He never heard of it, but said that he will look into it. Week after that, he called me into his office. He said that it's true, and that this will be the last year for everyone on school. Our part of school will be merged with another technical high school and some other gymnasium will fill our place. Now, why was that an outrage? Usually you hear from government at least 2 years prior to cancellation of school. Our metallurgy guild built that building 50 years ago, invited grammar school to live there too, and now we're the ones evicted? Sick, yo. Papers were kinda fishy. Now why were papers fishy? After doing some digging, paying visits and all that investigative reporter stuff like Kent Lane characters, I found out that there are two main figures behind all this. Head of our city's county, and county's deputy of Ministry of Education. Sorry, I have no idea how to correctly put words in that title. I already knew that head of our county was rotten, but when I came to see Minister of Education, yes, I went that far, from one end of country to capital city just to see Minister. He told me he had no idea what was going on in here, and that his deputy in our city is the one responsible for that. So, I came to a public council meeting, stood up, said in front of whole county's parliament what was going on, gave some papers to responsible politicians, organized protest, visited both head of county and that deputy Sinovac. Argued with them couple times, used every tool that democracy gave me. And you know what happened? Grammar school, which was supposed to fill our place in our school's building, was leaving their building so that deputy and head of county could rent it and have some little over 20 euros per month. It was a pretty large building, and they were already renting part of it, where they cancelled elementary school. None of this money never went to either taxpayers, neither to improve schooling system in our region, or refund our expensive equipment, microscopes, computers, metallurgy experimentation tools, etc. After all this ruckus we made, nothing helped, no satisfaction happened, and people leading our country just got a little more rich. Oh, and bonus, our guild was last and longest running guild in our country. Now big part of it just died because they destroyed whole branch of it. Like that song from LP, in the end it doesn't even matter. All of this happened in 2009-2010 in Slovakia, most tunneled part of EU, TLDR. Tried some democracy in Central Europe, failed horribly and got nowhere. That sucks. Good for you for trying to fight it. In high school, I'd almost gotten expelled because in a K9 unit career day presentation, the dog flipped and started barking at my backpack. Mind you, Reddit, I wasn't the best student. A always a C in math, but I was certainly not a stoner. Not hating, I just drank instead. Anyways, they took my bag, opened it, and found a bag full of pot. I freaked, totally speechless. In front of my entire school, I'd been caught with a crap ton of pot. If it wasn't for the stoned girl 2 rows back that, in the dead silence, said, "Oh, that's where my bag went," I'd have been sunk. Turns out we had the same backpacks, and at some point I took hers instead of mine. TLDR. I took someone else's book bag and it was full of pot. K9 unit caught it in front of the entire school. I would not know what to do in that situation. I, and a group of my co-workers, decided to allow an explosive into a hospital. So I was a medic in the US Army and was attached to a hospital unit. It was our first day of running the hospital when we got a call that a patient with a severe pelvic injury was incoming. So there we were, a doctor, a fellow medic, and myself, all on the flight line waiting for a helicopter to land with our patient. When it lands, we go up to take him out and notice a large protrusion from his hip. It has an obvious rocket look to it due to the fins. When we asked the medic and pilot why the heck there was an unexploded ordnance on the helicopter, it's a huge no-no to allow active explosives on an aircraft, for obvious reasons. And he basically says it was either let him stay there and die or risk our asses to get him help. Admirable to say the least. The pilot literally risked everything for a stranger. The patient wasn't American, by the way, he was a Nigerian guard, so we decided to do the same thing. Well, our hospital had the same policy. No unexploded ordnance is allowed, because if it went off it would take out half the building and our staff. Well, we bring him in the hospital and as soon as we get to the door our commander is protesting and essentially ordering us to get the patient out of there. We basically ignored him and brought the patient in. Sadly, after about 30 minutes of working he died on us. Regardless, afterwards we heard a huge mouthful from the higher ups. Eventually the story makes it around our base and the base commander finds out. Well, he thought we were badasses for doing that, and since he was a general and outranked my commander, everyone all of a sudden forgot that we disobeyed orders and risked everyone's butt. Either way, we eventually got recognized for what we did that day. Sad that this will get lost among a bunch of stupid freaking stories about high school. Great story. When I was in high school, I was a percussionist. All of my percussionist pools and I frequently carried large duffels full of mallets, sticks, and other equipment, including metronomes and other timekeeping devices, to and from school so that we could rehearse at home. My best friend at the time always stashed his duffel in the corner of his third period class so that he didn't have to carry it around all day before he needed it in fourth period. Block scheduling. One day the entire school was evacuated in second period. We weren't told why, but rumor had it that a duffel bag was making a beeping noise, one beep every second, in teachers' names room. My buddy realized it must be his duffel and that his metronome had turned on. So he ran to the principal and told her. He was escorted into the classroom by a bomb squad and told them it was his bag. One of the squad members said, "You open it," then and left the room. The look on best friend's face when he walked out of the school carrying this bag and holding his metronome up in the air was priceless. We can't believe that our teacher freaked out that much about it, enough to call a bomb squad, but needless to say, she didn't let my buddy stash his duffel in her classroom anymore. TLDR, my best buddy in high school will forever be known as the metronome bomber. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.